this is actually interesting. Not to imply that the rest was not, but this is sort of interesting. These are the estimated P and V over C. Remember that each cell there's 100 regions in Italy. There are guys with ATM and without ATM. Then there are 3 types of levels of consumption. So that makes this roughly 3,000 cells. In each cell, then we pull all the people that are the same. We estimate separately those that have ATMs and without ATM. We don't impose anything across these estimates. They're all done separate. Then we plot here the estimated value of P and the estimated value of V over C. So the point here means that this, I don't know, this may be wrong, let's say. I cannot do it. Let's say this is wrong. On one of the years, for the guys they are poor, let's say. So, and then we plot here those with and without ATM cards. So in this axis is with the ATM cards and this without ATM cards. Notice that the value of P is essentially always bigger for those with ATM cards, which we didn't impose, and we think that is what we should be getting. So we think of this as more like something that is consistent with our story. It could have been whatever in the data. And this is the value of V over C. V over C is a cost. It's the opposite. Those without ATM card has a cost the opposite. So the question is whether you are on one side or the other side of the 45-degree line. These are estimates that are noisy, so who knows? But it looked to us that this is clearly one side, and this is on the other side of the 45-degree line. Let me just discuss. I don't have time, so let me just do 2 points. If you look at, okay, so after all this, actually, let me just go to this. What is it? Sorry. I'm looking for a. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So let me say it in words. So if you look at so our model is designed to have an internet elasticity that is less than 1/2. What we ended estimating, our elasticity is it ended up being that even though P is very high and even though there is a lot of precautions, the elasticity is kind of very close to 1/2. Then we redid the estimates of the cost of inflation of Lucas. And we get numbers that are half of his numbers. Now if you think about his numbers, they are all the function of the interest rate elasticity. We have an interest rate elasticity, not quite 1/2 as he has. He just imposed that. We get something that is different from 1/2, but our estimates are half of it. So the question is, what's going on? What's going on is the following. Remember the very simple model? The one with this, the money demand. So this is Bam on Tobin, but then what happens is at a very low interest rate, the money demand flattens out. These are interest rates, and this is money demand. From demand theory, we know that the consumer surplus is what measures benefits. Now it is true that around the interest rates in Italy, we have locally across households, we have an elasticity that's close to 1/2. Think about where we are in this part. But if we drive interest rates all the way to 0, we hit the flat part. So the consumer surplus is much smaller. Ours is a smooth version of this graph. And that's why we get welfare benefits of decreasing inflation that are the order of half of the ones that Lucas gets. Okay. We think that ours are, I don't know, which. Okay, so his are nice because he's using 100 years of aggregate data, so that has some value of these big variations of interest rate. Ours have the advantage we think of relatively that we don't have big variations on interest rate, but we have all this wealth of the cross section. It's unclear which, in some sense, these are different type of evidence, but that the fact that we have some, so many variables that are informative about cash management, we kind of tend to like our estimates more. Okay, so then very briefly, let me tell you, conclude. Well, if this is unfrozen.
Is the idea here that the one big cost of inflation is that keep going to the bank?
Yep, that's the idea. That's the idea in all the inventory models. So, to conclude, we think that when it's done, if you like, this is there it is. So we think that an interesting topic would be to think about the adoption of the debit card, credit card. That's kind of what you brought up. In some sense, we explored a lot the separability, but if you look at Europe, the big thing in Europe is the use of debit cards, not really credit cards. The fraction of purchases made with credit cards and the fraction of households with credit card is pretty much steady. What's changing a lot in Europe, which is the US is a little bit of an outlier in the way we buy stuff. First of all, we use checks. It is true that we use less and less checks, but still, checks is like an American thing. In Europe, what you have is where it's not that people are using more and more credit cards. They're using more and more debit cards as a means of payments, which brings some challenges from the modeling point of view, because they don't have the same, sort of trade-off as we are used to for the cash credit type of decision of the interest rate. They're all coming from the same place. So it's probably more anonymity, the type of goods, the cost of time. That's why we think this service would be kind of at the detail level would be useful. So, and the other type of cost is sort of informational cost. There's sort of nice surveys also asking people about record keeping. So this sort of comes to what you were asking. So there's sort of nice surveys asking about this record keeping and the cost of, or not so much, they also ask the cost of that, but I think the most interesting is just to see what people do, as opposed to the cost is probably hard to interpret for us. So anyway, that's the sort of things that we're planning to use. Plus, we're working in Rob with the same type of model for Thailand. And that's because in Thailand, the cash credit is not an issue. If you think about the type of guys that are in Rob's sample, it's not that they have credit cards. But they use cash very, very heavily. And the big thing for us there, for the Thailand households, is that how much cash is used for transactions, and how much cash is used as a store of value. And to have that, it's nice to have a model to fall back. So this is a model that is emphasizing just purely transactions. Okay? But the data is detailed enough. It has some advantages and disadvantages with this type of models. Okay? So we'll see whenever, if we ever finish it, we'll have something to say about it.